Welcome to the show.
Mic check, mic check.
1, 2, what is this?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Infusion Breakdown Show. As always, it's your boy Joshua Freeman. To my left, I got Mr. Bryan Carey. To my right, I got Mr. Desmond Tillman.
What's goodie?
How you guys doing?
Great.
You guys good?
Oh yeah, another day in the life.
I'm good. You got any New Year's plans? New Year's parties hitting up anybody?
What's the New Year's?
I was really considering it because I've been kind of getting pressure from multiple people to do something since I have a new place now.
Oh,
it's like
I hear.
a housewarming, yeah.
Okay.
And then I really thought about, do I really want a bunch of people over at one time? No. Do I want to clean up after a bunch of people?
No.
So I'm just gonna let that go.
Yeah.
Probably just lay it low.
Yeah, I think Desmond won in fantasy, but.
Bruh,
the question we have
I've won one league and I'm about to win the second one. I'm about to be 2 out of 3 for fantasy.
But the question we have for you guys today, is it better to love and lose or never to love in the first place? Comment, let us know, okay? So, who wants to start this off? Since Desmond is fixated on his fantasy.
Let him check his stats.
No, I'm good. We ready.
I would say I'm not certain. Because it depends to a large degree what's your goal, what's your objective. So if your objective is a permanent solution or a finite endpoint where you're just at and then that's the end of it and it's just happily ever after, that would be a failure. But if your goal is experience, that's why you're in the sacred relationship. It's not just you understand that it may not work out, but you're there for the experience. Then I could say, well, it is better to have loved than lost. But that's not the way that most people perceive it. And also, the reason I say I'm uncertain is because sometimes, given the nature of relationships, the way they end, things that go on during them, some people just never recover from them. So that's why I have such difficulty coming to a solid, universal answer on that question.
You want to go?
Nah, I think you.
Is it better to love and lose? I say it's better to love and lose for people to actually learn from their relationships, like their past relationships, and know what to do as going forward with their future relationships and how to deal with that. But if, as far as the people who don't learn, it's better to actually never have love in the first place. And when I say that, I mean actually the people who because there's people who endure trauma because of relationships and love. I mean, can you really say that those people were better off loving and losing rather than...
My point exactly.
Yeah, would you really say that those people are better off loving and losing rather than never loving in the first place because of those traumas? So I would say really never. It really depends on if that person has the ability to actually learn. And I know I have said before that people, everybody learns, that's how people gain the ability to do everything. They have to learn it in some capacity. Like how we talked about how our infant learns to do things, you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So I know I said that, but as we get older, I feel like at a certain age, we feel like we've learned everything we need to know. So we become a little ignorant to some parts of knowledge. So I stop learning in a way because of some things that I feel. So that's why I feel it really depends on the person's ability to actually learn from the actual relationship.
You're saying the older we get, we're kind of more hyper specialized, so we get more focused into whatever area or whatever perspective we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that being true. I would definitely agree with that. But also, what you were saying about the opportunity, well, anytime we have an identity crisis, kind of like what you said with your first heartbreak on the last episode we just shot, check it out. It presents forth a tremendous opportunity for a chance to pick yourself back up and kind of rebuild yourself. Because, so while you're questioning things, you start to evaluate yourself about, first you look inward and say, what could I have done differently? And then if you move forward past it, you acknowledge that you see the situation fully, and then you're able to pick up positive behaviors and make amends and move forth properly in the future. And I mean, it's whether you choose to seize the opportunity is completely up to you. But on the other side of that, you have the potential to build yourself up into something greater, whether it's in the future context of a relationship, or was it just on an individual basis? Like something you learn personally that may not necessarily contribute to how you conduct yourself in a relationship, but something that helps make you better.
Yeah. What do you think?
Official answer?
Me? I said it's better for those people who...
For you.
If you said one time?
For you.
For me,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's better to love and lose.
I would agree,
Okay. Why it take you so long?
because I was passing my standpoint through my previous statement.
All right. So the boss is up to the plate. So I'm not going to disagree with anything you guys said. I think it's for the way the question is asked. I definitely think y'all hit everything on the head. But one thing I'm going to say is, for you to lose something, that means you once had to possess it. And I feel like with people, you don't ever possess them. You only kind of experience them. Kind of taking a quote, because when Nipsey died earlier this year, there's something that Lauren kind of hit on the head at the funeral. Something that it actually resonated with me immediately when she said it. It's like, you don't really ever possess anyone. You only experience them. And I think that with loss, losing a person kind of equates to everything. Like, almost when Sonic hits something, he loses all his coins. That's something that he once possessed. He hit the spike, he hit the little spike turtle, and he's lost everything. You don't lose anything when a relationship ends. You gain everything. You gain experience. Even those people that keep going into the same thing, that's willful negligence. That's not a lack of experience, because they have all the experience in the world. They've done it multiple times. And I get, the whole trauma thing. Trauma sometimes trumps, knowledge and wisdom. And so that they keep going back into what feels familiar, because people indulge in comfort. Mm-hmm. So, for the sake of answering the question, I don't think I really need to, because you don't ever possess anybody. You don't ever lose anything. You don't lose love. It just reemerges when it's actually time. Like, what you perceive to be, love was love at that time, but when it left, that was the end of that experience. That wasn't you losing the person, because you never really possessed them to begin with. You only truly valued the experience. And I think that when we go into that mind frame of possession, it makes detachment 10 times harder. It makes dealing with heartbreak 10 times harder, because you took on a sense of false ownership. And I think it ties in perfect to our last conversation, where you place expectations. Because if you have ownership over something, you're expecting it to act a certain way. You're expecting it to do certain things. And that's not the case at all. Like, a relationship, marriage, whatever it be, is just a cohesive indulgence of experience. And if you either continue to experience that person, you either willfully continue to experience that person, or you decide that the experiences that you're currently feeling are not where your heart and mind currently lay, and it's time for you to move on. That's not a loss. That's anything. That's a personal gain. Because if you don't acknowledge that, then that's where staying in the same situationships, relationships, marriages come into play. And your time is expired with this person, but because you have that possessive mind state, you continue to stay in it. You're never going to lose that person. You're going to lose yourself, and that's where the identity crisis comes into play.
I agree with everything you just said, but I do believe people feel that those experiences the part of the thing that they lost, not just them feeling ownership over that person.
Yeah, I kind of echo that too, with the idea that love is not about possession. If you really want to look at what it truly is, I'll agree with you. But so when you lose love, I feel like you lose the opportunity. That's the biggest part of it. You lose the possibility to express it, because, like you said, love is an experience. So you lose that, and as well as some people who they use their relationship as the center of their happiness. If you're not properly structured, you lose that too.
But my rebuttal for that is going to be that you don't lose those experiences. You don't lose the ability to have that experience.
Your past experiences,
No, I'm talking about even current.
Okay.
Because what happens, I feel like, with how y'all are breaking it down is you have that possessive mind state. You've taken something personal and you now no longer want to talk to this person. You no longer want to be seen, hear from them, whatever it may be. If you respect the experience's mindset, then you realize that what I'm doing is I can still talk to this person. I can do whatever I want to do with this person because I've set the boundaries. I've acknowledged what is, and I acknowledge what was, and I now acknowledge what is. Those experiences you had were not centered just based off the relationship. That was based off of a bond that existed before and could continue to exist after the relationship if it's played right. Like, I know with me, personally with my son's mother, like, I'm still allowed to experience her because I cut the ties with possession. Like, something that starts with possession doesn't have to end with possession. Sometimes something that starts with possession can go through that kind of, blender of realization to where, like, I'm constantly the source of my own depression. I'm constantly the source of my own unhappiness because I'm placing expectations that a person cannot live up to. Like, that's me. That I think this episode and last episode tie perfectly together because a lot of our hard truths are like thinking loyalty truly exists with between you and the person. I think dating back to a couple other episodes, we're like, people are going to act within their self-interest. And those experiences are going to always be within their self-interest. It's something that has to happen organically. So, I do understand that a lot of relationships will end sour and people don't want to talk to that person. They kind of, take everything for what it is now and think like, damn, I truly did, enjoy the time spent when it was good. And I hated the time spent when it was bad. Either way, they're experiences. It's just what you take from them is how you choose to either let it impact you or let it roll off.
And that's all dependent on your goal.
In what aspect?
Like what I said earlier about whether your goal is to have a life full of experiences or whether you're trying to reach a finite point.
Yeah, but we're never going to be happy. Well, I'm sorry, not happy. We will be happy, but we'll never be full.
You mean we'll never be content?
Full lesson, like fully.
We'll never fully have all the possessions we want to have. We'll never fully have all the money we want to have. We never will fully have, we'll never truly achieve our full level of purpose because there's tiers to it. And I feel like at some point you just reside in the tier you're supposed to be in. So I think, acknowledgement of what is where like a lot of people, settle in life because we've realized that based off, and realizing what is isn't always settling. Sometimes just acknowledging what, sometimes acknowledging settlement is good for you because you constantly are chasing something that you might not get. So
What?
not because I think my mind frame or my mindset is kind of like trying to take the bad out of bad situations and kind of highlight the good, kind of like how we talked in the last episode again where it was like you said one thing you came to terms with you're impatient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly fine. Like, being happy with where you're at, I think, is like the most important thing. You're always going to deal with that confliction of knowing you could have done more, but you found happiness where you're at. And that sounds like settling, but it's not. It doesn't always chalk itself up as settling. Like, I feel like we identify something as settling because we're all in fake imaginary competition with one another, trying to all run the same race when we all have our own journeys. Like, what we would perceive to someone as settling, or what we would perceive with someone settling, really was the fulfillment of their potentially their goals or where they saw themselves being in life. Whereas with us, it's like, nah, we're placing our expectations on them. Like, you could have done so much more. Well, could they? Like, were they equipped with the proper tools, the proper knowledge to do more? Or did they fulfill their life based off of what they knew?
I don't even see settling as just that. I see it as also within ourselves because maybe it's just the fact that I'm not too concerned about competing with other people. I'm always like pretty aware of what I could be, what I should be, the ideal. And so I feel like settling is what you do in the present. If you know that you're capable of greater, but you do less and you're at a lesser point in life, then I feel that's the definition of settling. I don't think you can settle if something's in the past. That's just accepting and moving forward.
You say you can't settle with what's in the past.
Yeah, it's done. Settling is something you're currently doing.
Okay. Understood.
Anybody else has anything to add?
Do you have anything else to add?
I was going to ask you, can people be truly happy?
That's their own definition.
It just, you said what?
It's just whatever their own definition of it is.
There are many people who are.
Yeah, like I can't answer that question because I don't know what that person's definition of happiness is. Like,
and it's also like, I keep thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it seems like every discussion we have tends to go back towards some facet. But just at the pinnacle of it, it culminates in self-actualization. And at that point, you achieve the ideal of what you could be. And the people who are at that level, that's the people who I feel like they achieve happiness.
I was going to ask you, did you... Because when he says possess, like, you don't really possess somebody. I was like, I never feel like when I'm in a relationship, I feel like I possess that person. You know what I mean? Maybe other people do, but I was going to ask you, do you feel like if you ever love somebody and lose them, do you ever feel like, oh, I lost that possession? Like basically what Desmond was talking about?
I don't outwardly say that, but we behave as we do. I think that's the case for most people. It's like, so if you see that person, you feel like, oh, that's my person. Not saying like ownership-wise, but you see a particular bond between the two of you to where you don't want to be with anyone else. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like a puzzle or like Lego bricks that they fit together. You feel like that's the only compatible one. And so that's mine. So it's like this sense of that's what's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of project that. And I think a lot of people act that out.
Yeah. If anybody, nothing else to add? Desmond?
Do you feel like you do that?
Do
you feel like you acted out?
Act what exactly?
What I just said about possession.
Oh no.
So
like
if there's someone who you once had feelings for, and you were to see them with another guy, you would see her with another guy, would you feel upset by that?
It depends on the actual time frame of when we broke up. I mean, if it was like the next day after we broke up, hell yeah, fuck out of here. If it was like 3 months, I probably wouldn't feel wouldn't be as affected by it. You know what I mean? 5
years later, probably a lot different.
Yeah, 5 years
so
later.
Let's say that.
Oh, I used to forget it.
What happened?
Forget it. But yeah.
But so in terms of like what I was asking about, you acting that out.
Wait, before y'all move on, you said you don't see that as like possession. You said what his analogy, where he was getting at, before you started breaking everything down, like seeing the person the next day versus 3 months, you said you don't see that as like possession, like the relationship itself. If it splits that way, like was the relationship possessive? Did you view that as a possessive versus experience?
Wait, what are you referring to exactly?
Okay, I'm gonna just give you so what you described was like a fulfilled detachment phase, like seeing somebody 3 months later with somebody new.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've gone through the detachment phase. For you to detach, there was an attachment at some point. Like there was some form of possession.
I guess I'm just cringy at the word possession because it makes it seem like...
I don't think it necessarily indicates that he was possessive.
Yeah, okay. Why?
But I do understand that. Yeah. Because just the fact that you have an emotional attachment, because I believe that attachment and connection are two opposite sides of the same coin. Because connection implies there's something that is, I feel like it's parasitic, whereas an attachment is parasitic, and connection is something that's understood and something that two people foster together in a healthy manner. And like I said, attachment is the opposite of that, to where it's like dependency is implied. And when you're dependent on somebody, you kind of do take a stake of ownership. And so it ultimately depends on which side of the coin you were looking at it through.
Because what I'm gonna say is there's no unwritten rule to where if you split with somebody, you're not allowed to mess with somebody the next day.
That's true, but
Like, what you
that is true. But if you had certain type of feelings towards me, then your own.
But we established before that a lot of people don't end things when they're ready to end things.
Okay.
So that person, when women are really good at detaching before the relationship ends. So she was already mentally, emotionally, physically detached.
Already gone.
Yes, they were like, they were just there present. Like physically they were there, but mentally, emotionally, and all that, they were gone. And you kind of got to think like they're allowed to do that. Like there's no contract signed. There's nothing saying that, oh, if I fuck with you for 6 months, then you're not allowed to talk with anybody for 30 days. If it's longer than 6 months,
and then after,
then you gotta wait a 90-day period. Like there's
no
nothing there. Like there's like that. I think that's peak possessive. Like we're thinking, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but we as humans, whether male or female, we think that like people are truly supposed to genuinely care about how we feel.
They don't.
And they don't. Like, because they chose to do something in that moment, you're easily think, oh, that person never cared. But like in the moment when they were caring, that's how they truly felt. And now that they've detached themselves and they realize that they're ready to experience more, they don't care any less. They're just in their own element. They're ready to do what they want to do. They're ready to experience what they want to experience. And you should not have to deprive yourself of experiences for the sake of looking good in somebody else's eyes.
I think that what you're describing might not necessarily describe possessiveness, but definitely selfishness.
Okay. We can draw a line there.
Because
selfishness doesn't always equate to possessiveness, or will?
Yeah.
Well, we can draw a line there.
Because you're concerned about someone else's behavior, how it affects your mental well-being, or your feelings, your emotional state, not thinking about where that person's currently at or where they were during the course of the last leg of the relationship. I mean, these are normal human emotions. When I saying these are wrong.
Yeah. Like it's I'm gonna tell you it's unfair because I mean let's face it, somebody had an ace on you. Somebody put that ace down before you did. So it is unfair, but it's not unjust.
Yeah.
Because they're acting within their own self-interest. They're not deliberately moving on for the sake of making you feel. Some people do it. Some people pull. Some people know that jealousy fuels their significant other, and they'll use that as a means to make somebody try and realize what they have, and then stop. Like that. That's an unhealthy relationship to begin with. But like, I mean, you don't ever deprive yourself of experiences caring about what somebody else feels. And not saying like if you're in a relationship, cheat because that's what you want to experience at the time. It's just like if you know that you're at a point to where the situation that you are currently in is not beneficial to your well-being and who you are as a person, then don't think about what if. Don't think about when I get through this, everything is going to be all right. Like, yeah, have patience and perseverance if it's worth sticking in. But if you come to a conclusion that you're in a situation, whether it be relationship, work, whatever, stop thinking that like there's some code of honor that you have to follow because your actions might have this and that, the third impact on somebody. Like, people get over it. People move on.
If they say they won't get over it,
like,
they'll get it. Yeah.
People need experiences to harden them. Like, that's all it is. Like, you're never going to truly amount to what you feel you're worthy of until you experience stuff. If you kind of just go through life like avoiding things, you're never going to truly learn what it takes to survive. Like, you think you know what it takes to survive, and really you're just living in a world full of anxiety. Like,
but that experience is everything as far as what you're talking
yeah.
I think it's really helpful to do that if you're aware of, if you just ask yourself the question, how many times has someone put their life on hold for you and been considerate about how you felt about something?
And that's why I said if it's if the patience is there, if the perseverance is there, and it's mutual, like, do your due diligence. Like, you do right by the other person, but at the same time, like, don't do right by somebody that you're if you don't feel like there's that mutual genuine connection, then stop trying to create it. Stop trying to trick your mind into thinking that that's there, because or tricking your mind that it's there to satisfy the other person. Like, you live in a life of lies.
Yeah, that goes with the impatience.
Yeah,
like, you're just trying to be impatient. You're trying to get to the end point before without actually going through all the parameters. Yeah. Have anything to add?
That last thing we were just talking about how often do people consider your feelings and put their life on hold for you? I was thinking that's also paradoxical too. So if I was to ask either of you, both of you seem to agree, right? That, oh yeah, you put your life on hold for more people than they have done for you. But if we all experience that, how is that so?
Say it one time.
If we all experience that same phenomenon, how is that so? If we all feel like we put our lives on pause for other people more than they do for others.
I think we're just choosing the wrong people. Because some people, I mean, let's face it, like, some people truly do have everything handed to them. Like, they don't have to, like, worry. Like, I think the one thing with women is, like, they have a lot of stuff given to them by their father, which sets a precedence for what to expect in a relationship, to just have that continuously given. Whereas the person that they might be laying with isn't capable of doing that. Like, sometimes your parents do set a very unreachable expectation for what to expect out of a relationship, just out of what they feel you deserve to have. Not truly, like, thinking, what do I genuinely deserve to have? So we all go through those experiences of dealing with, those people. It's just part of life. It's part of the experience at the end of the day.
I think the same can be said for both genders.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of research.
There's a lot of women
about, like, how you seeing your parents' relationship and their interaction, how that shapes how you perceive relationships to be. And then also, just taking away all the weird stuff, but that, like what you said about how girls, they inherit that from their fathers, and then they think about what to expect. Yeah. I think the same could be said for us too, because you think about it, there might be a trait that you like how your mother expressed compassion, or you like how she was patient or something like that, and that's just the standard for how you feel, how you would like to be treated by a woman.
No, damn well you ain't got a look of compassion or patience.
Yeah, it's funny how we want things that we don't possess.
Yeah.
You want a patient person, but you're not patient. Yeah. You want a compassionate person, but you're not compassionate.
That's where that whole idea of, like, false balance comes into play.
I think we
balance each other out, like,
bullshit.
We just put up with each other.
I think the best way to move forward with that in mind is so you think about the kind of person that you want to be with, and then think about the kind of person that they want to be with. So a compassionate person will want to be with naturally a compassionate person. So you need to acquire those traits and work on yourself in order to make yourself attracted to that kind of person. It's not so just like accept me as I am. Like, you might not be the best person in the world. You might not be living up to your potential, and that's very well likely, because all of us have been there at some point in time, not living up to our potential. And who's to say somebody should be tasked with taking that up in a relationship?
Yeah, that's well said though. Yeah. You have anything to add?
Nah, bro, we out of here.
Jesus. All right, we're gonna wrap up this discussion. What do you guys think though? Is it better to love and lose, or never to love in the first place?
Or neither.
Yeah. Yeah, neither. If you're that type of person. Yeah. But we're gonna have an album of the week from Desmond, then we're gonna be going.
So, been in the gym heavy this week because my son spent time with my mom in North Carolina. And one album that I consistently played was Jack Huncho, and it's a collab album with Travis Scott and Quavo. Came out a couple of years ago, and I think it aged really nicely, because when it came out then, I didn't really, like, appreciate the, start to finish aspect of it. But it's really one of those albums that I can listen to in the gym from start to finish and not skip anything, and I can find myself being there, hour and a half, 2 hours, putting the song on repeat, or putting the album on repeat. So if you've been heavy in the gym, new year, new you just got that gym membership,
Just got it. That's funny.
just got that gym membership. Check out Huncho Jack Huncho. It's a good album to work out to or run to, whatever you want to do.
All right, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you guys like the discussion we had today. And we're going to see you guys next week. Peace.
Next year. Next decade.
Here we go.